It is remarkable to consider that two of history's greatest thinkers shared the same period on Earth. Seneca and Jesus were born in the year 4 BC. Furthermore, their lives showed remarkable similarities, although they were separated by regional, cultural, and social differences. Interestingly, both were mentioned by Cornelius Tacitus, and Seneca's brother made a brief appearance in the Bible. This coincidence is truly surprising. Ultimately, both Seneca and Jesus Christ met very similar fates. Both were victims of oppression by emperors, and their influences lasted long after their deaths. While the Bible states that Jesus rose from the dead after 3 days, Seneca did not suffer the same fate. However, both are still alive to us through their words, teachings, and writings, just as they would be to people of their time. It is fascinating to observe how their teachings share many commonalities. We'll explore these similarities in more detail during this video. A notable example is when Jesus said, "Why do you look at the speck that is in your brother's eye, but do not look at the plank that is in your own eye?" Of course, we are not suggesting that Seneca and Jesus Christ are comparable according to Christian belief, since Seneca was clearly a flawed and contradictory human being, while Jesus, depending on belief, was both human and divine. However, we can say that they both led magnificent lives and left valuable teachings for us to consider and question. What is also notable is how their teachings have many commonalities. We'll explore these similarities in more detail throughout the video, but here's a small example. You notice other people's flaws when you're covered in a mass of wounds. Jesus expressed it in a similar way when he said, "Why do you look at the speck that is in your brother's eye, but do not look at the plank that is in your own eye?" In analysis, the message initially proclaimed by Jesus received significant contributions from the Apostle Paul and his followers, who worked to adapt Jesus' teachings to a wider audience. Paul, who was born just a few years after Jesus, was a Pharisaic Jew familiar with the philosophical teachings of the time. While traveling the Mediterranean, he was often involved in dialogues with Stoicism. Two key events in Paul's life and ministry are connected to historical philosophers. One such event occurred in Athens, where Paul debated Stoic philosophers in the Agora. This led to accusations against his ideas about foreign deities, and he was brought before the court of the Areopagus. There, Paulo presented logical and persuasive arguments, dividing his audience into different perspectives. Some mocked, others were curious, and some even converted to Christianity. In the famous speech on the Hill of Mars, Paul praised the religiosity of his audience, while questioning their devotion to the unknown gods. He emphasized the existence of a single Creator who is close to us all, for it is in Him that we live, move, and have our being, and we are all His descendants. Today, on the Hill of Mars, there is a bronze plaque that commemorates this event. It contains the speech given by the Apostle Paul when introducing the ideas of a supreme Creator, whom we defend and with whom we are intimately linked. Paul, in part, refers to the words of the famous hymn to Zeus, composed by the historical philosopher. Paul's defense, in part based on historical theology, won the conversion of a member of the court, Dionysius, as well as many others present. Dionysius would become the first Christian bishop of Athens and, to this day, is revered as the city's patron saint, being seen as protector of the judiciary. Paul later left for Achaia, where Seneca's brother Galho was governor in AD 52, while Seneca himself was recalled from exile to serve as tutor to the young Nero. Paul was accused by the Jews and taken to court. This account can be found in the Bible in verses 12 and 13 of chapter 18 of Acts, where the Jews accused him of persuading people to serve God against the law. However, Paulo was taken before Galho, who rejected the accusations. Over the next 7 years, Paul managed to successfully establish his churches throughout the empire, while Seneca rose to a position of influence in Nero's administration. Stoicism and Christianity, despite obvious differences, seemed to coexist at certain times. When Nero took the throne at age 16, Seneca became his advisor and even wrote speeches for the young emperor. However, Nero's subsequent actions revealed his insanity. In 64 AD, a great fire devastated Rome, destroying more than 2/3 of the city. Nero, a student of Seneca, ordered the beheading of the Apostle Paul in the same year. At first glance, this might suggest incompatibility between Stoicism and Christianity. However, these conflicts may have been shaped by the context of conflicts and power struggles of the time. According to Kevin Rowe, professor of New Testament at Duke University, Stoicism and Christianity have a long history of mutual influence, and several Christian authors have referenced Stoic philosophy. Therefore, the relationship between the two is complex, and the debate over their compatibility continues to this day. Some argue that it is difficult to be both a Stoic and a Christian, while others believe that both can enrich a person's life. Joseph de Dinson, a scholar of connections between Seneca and Paul, claims that God used elements of Stoicism to enhance his own Christian faith and make him a better person. Furthermore, Kevin, a doctor of clinical psychology and author of the book The Portico and the Cross, Ancient Historical Wisdom for Modern Christian Living, largely agrees with Professor Dottison's ideas. He also noted that while conducting research to write his own book, he noticed surprising similarities in views on issues such as marriage, family, abortion, and even contraception, which align with the teachings of modern Christianity. Kevin has no intention of converting historical ancients into Christians. He believes that historical teachings offer valuable lessons for people of Christian faith, other religions, and even non-believers. The similarities between Stoicism and Christianity, no matter how unique the individual circumstances of figures such as Jesus, Seneca, Paulo, Rustico, and Justin Martyr may have been, demonstrate that these two philosophies have more in common than we can imagine. In the works of historians and Christians, we find similar lessons on different topics. Contentment. Both emphasize the importance of finding contentment regardless of circumstances. The attitude, not the situation, must be valued. It is crucial to investigate whether a rich person can maintain contentment in poverty, and whether a poor person can be content in wealth. Forgiveness and love. Both traditions highlight the importance of forgiveness and love for others. The principle of the Golden Rule, loving your neighbor as yourself, is fundamental to both Christianity and Stoicism. Reflection on mortality. Both Stoics and Christians remember the importance of considering mortality in all actions. This helps guide choices and live more meaningfully. Anxiety. Both philosophies emphasize the importance of dealing with anxiety constructively, seeking kind words and encouragement. Discipline and self-control. Discipline and self-control are important values in both Stoicism and Christianity. Although they may seem unpleasant in the moment, they create justice and peace in the long term. Dealing with anger. Both traditions advise not to give in to anger too quickly, as it can lead to foolishness and regret. Stillness and reflection. Stillness and reflection are encouraged as ways to connect with God, in the case of Christianity, or the inner self, in the case of Stoicism. Role models and imitation. The importance of having role models to follow and imitate is recognized in both traditions. Choosing a teacher whose life and values align with your own is essential to character development. Loving enemies. Both Christianity and Stoicism emphasize the idea of loving even those who are considered enemies, acting with kindness and generosity. Persistence in kindness. Kindness is seen as invincible, as long as it is sincere and free from hypocrisy. Even in the face of malice, it is important to continue showing kindness and, when possible, point out where someone went wrong. Finally, Kevin opens his book with a Bible verse that highlights the continuity of life and humanity over time. It emphasizes how, despite changes in practices and attitudes throughout history, human beings still share fundamental emotions and experiences, regardless of their philosophy, religion, or lack of belief. What remains are people dying, loving, fighting, crying, and laughing. The most important thing living a small time we have to live be a Christian, or Stoics, or actually people of all philosophies and religions. We are basically the same as people have always been in the past and always will be in the future. Thanks for watching this far. Don't worry. Forget to like the video, comment, and subscribe to the channel to see more inspiring videos like this one. Thank you and see you next time.